Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hi, this is Pat Fraley, purveyor of Duck, Dog, and Villain voices, and you're watching Altered Geek.
Hello and welcome to Altered Geek Unlimited, episode 35. I'm your host, Steve Megatron Phillips, and joining me, as usual now, is...
me, Mike, Booth Ninja Powers.
Yes, out of the swing of things a little bit, but...
Just throw that out there. Holy cow. Just drop it. Just... You could be hosting by yourself. Just be hanging there.
That would be sad. Although, no offense to Mike, but it seems like I got better reception from that than when he was on for some reason.
Oh.
From some people. I have no problem with it. But anyways. So yeah, hope everybody enjoyed the car and life conversations from last week.
See, I didn't see anyone hating on it.
I didn't either.
I know there are some people that want to see my TV list. Still trying to figure out the best way to do that other than just like an info dump. But I will probably not this episode, maybe like another future episode. And to clarify, I track 61 different TV shows. Obviously, the TV shows are not on year-round. Some air during the summer and some air during the fall. I think the most that I've ever had on my docket at one time was like 40. And that could get kind of daunting.
No, are there certain shows that you watch week to week, and then there's certain ones that you wait and blitz them all in one season?
Well, here's how. Okay, this is where my TV watching habits came from. I needed something to do at the movie theater, and back when there was film, there was a lot of running around, but every once in a while you would end up with maybe an hour and a half where you didn't have anything to do. Plus there were 2 hours at the end of the night where there was nothing to do. So there was a whole lot of, TV watching going on then. When we went digital at the movie theater, all of a sudden there was nothing to do. So I was stuck with a 15-hour shift and a 17-hour shift respectfully, working Tuesdays and Saturdays. And I needed to fill that void with something. A lot of it, a majority of it was filling it with TV. Every once in a great while, like every couple of years, I would just binge and gorge on comics that I had been missing out on. But TV became kind of my hobby, if you will, through torrents mostly, because I didn't really watch. I wouldn't watch them when they were on TV because the 5 days when I wasn't at work, I would spend playing video games or hanging out with friends or my girlfriend, who is now, my wife. But those 2 days of the week, Tuesdays and Saturdays, those were my TV days. So mostly I break it down into, I guess, what you're talking about are the shows that you watch on a weekly basis. I guess that those would be considered my must-watch TV shows. And those are TV shows that I will pay attention to when I'm watching them at work. I will watch them and I won't play on my phone or anything like that or browse the internet on my iPad. I'll just straight watch them. But then there are other shows that I consider them train wreck shows. And they are shows that I think are so bad, or not, I don't want to say so bad, but are bad to the point where I can't not watch them. I can't look away is basically what's going on with the train wreck shows. Kind of I can't turn away from watching this train wreck. And it's kind of I keep watching it because there's some stuff that I like and there's some stuff that I don't like, and I hope that the stuff that I like will become like the basis for the show or more prevalent. Case in point, I remember starting to watch Arrow, and the first half of season one, like that first half of season one of Arrow was a train wreck to me. It
Yeah.
was I'm going to watch this, but I wasn't actively paying attention to it. What I was paying attention to was, laughable at best, finger pointing and big no-nos. But I stuck with it. Like I couldn't not watch it, and obviously it picked up in the last half of season one, and everything's carried over into season two, and it's actually it's a decent show now. So that's like a classic one, and some shows don't even like survive that. One of my other rules of thumb when I'm trying out a brand new show is I give it 2 episodes. So basically, they get their pilot episode and their first standard episode for a TV series, so I can kind of see, because a lot of changes can happen from the pilot episode to either the first episode or the second episode.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, well, I'll see if they made any changes that make the show more appealing to me. And I can't see, I watched so many shows that I can't really remember the last show that I just stopped watching after 2 episodes. Well, no, you know what? I can. I will have to say the one that jumps to my mind is The Ringer. It was the most recent Sarah Michelle Gellar series.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mike loved that one.
Yeah, I gave that its 2 episodes, and I was like, nope, done. Because it wasn't even intriguing enough to like pay attention to for those 2 episodes. But that's the most recent one. I can't really think of anything this past fall that started like that. There are a couple shows that I chopped immediately. I know Revolution went by the wayside, and Hostages went by the wayside as well. Just because they were so... Well, Revolution didn't know what the hell it was, and Hostages was just bleh. So, as far as like marathoning stuff, there are certain shows that I will marathon. Like Once Upon a Time.
Okay.
I will let that stack up. Not because I don't like that show. I actually do enjoy that show quite a bit. But I find that I enjoy that show more when I've got maybe 3, 4, sometimes 5 episodes to watch in a row.
So you're not having to wait week to week to kind of get the satisfaction of the story that they're telling.
Exactly. Like I can see the story. I get to see the story unfold instead of being like, oh man, I have to wait. And so there's that one that does it. And I think I've got another one. Let me check here real quick. For some reason, I haven't started watching The Americans yet this year. Like I've got all 5 episodes downloaded, but I haven't started watching that. Continuum. There's been 3 episodes of that, and I haven't checked in on it.
I have. It's actually pretty good.
See, the issue I'm running into now is that my days at work got cut down, so I only work half a day at the theater on Mondays now, and I still work all day Sunday. But there are just a lot of TV shows that come out, so I find myself trying to watch the ones that I actually want to watch, and
saving up on the rest.
And that could either be because I want to marathon them or just because I don't really feel like watching them. Like, for instance, just throwing these out there, I have 4 episodes of the Tomorrow People that I'm behind on, which is a CW superhero show. It's not bad, but it was getting good when I stopped watching it, so I think I will probably catch up on that this weekend. And I've got 5 episodes of the new CW series Starcrossed, which I've only watched 2 episodes of that, but given that there's 5, it means I haven't watched it in almost a month and a half. So I should probably remove that one from my list. But I don't know. So yeah, I kind of want to... I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Like I said, I've got 61 shows that I'm currently tracking. I was thinking, maybe when Danner shows back up so he can ridicule my watching what I watch. Maybe we could split it into 2 episodes, and I could go like alphabetically, like 1 through 30, and then 31 through 61 or something.
Mm-hmm.
split it up over 2 episodes, and people can tell me what I should keep watching and, what I should let fall by the wayside. And there are certain things that I will not give up on no matter what people say, because, well, I know what I like. Some things on here, like, for instance, I'll throw out another one, Grey's Anatomy. I am 10 seasons into that show. I'm not giving up on it until it's over. So, or until they do something completely stupid or get rid of a character that I really like. I shouldn't say care for, that I really like. So, like, that one won't go away because I've invested, 10 seasons into that. So, but yeah. So just to clarify, long-winded speech there about my TV watching and stuff like that. So maybe starting next week when Danner comes back, we'll do a 2-part thing, and that way you guys can, tell me how bad my TV stuff is. At the same time, though, I think that the amount of shows that I've watched over the years that have come and gone, I'm pretty good at being able to call what is good and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not to the point where I can actually review a television show, mainly because I don't feel that I'm qualified to write a review, but I can definitely talk about a TV show. Case in point, when The Walking Dead first started airing, was it like 5 years ago now? 4 years ago?
I think it was about 4.
Yeah. When it first started airing, I remember all my friends who had read the comic, they were like super excited for it. They were like, "Oh, this is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. It's The Walking Dead. It's coming to TV, and it's made by Frank Darabont." And I had never read the comic. I will admit to that. At that time, I had never read the comic. And I sat down and, watched the first episode like, millions of other people did. And when it was over, I went on Facebook and I was like, this is not good television. This is not great. And I remember all of my friends that were Walking Dead fans were just like blasting me. And I remember one person thought it was insulting. It was insulting my ability to, they tried insulting my ability to offer judgment on something by saying that I enjoyed Wolverine Origins. Let me preface this by saying I enjoyed Wolverine Origins for what it was, which was basically a Sunday comic strip version of Wolverine. It was very cheesy, very hokey, laughable, and I did not in any way, shape, or form take it seriously. But they thought they were offending me. But what was really funny is I kept watching the series because everyone else was watching the series, and I kept watching it get worse and worse and worse through the first season. And by the end of season 1, everyone that was mad at me for saying it was bad TV was also now saying it was a bad TV show. I was like, I told you guys this from the first episode. And just so that I could offer some kind of judgment on the series, I actually started reading the graphic novel. And yeah, that first season was a mess compared to the graphic novel. I still having read as much of the graphic novel as I have, there are still issues that I take with The Walking Dead, only because I wish they would have done something different with it, which was just told a different story in that universe rather than trying to retell the comic on the TV, which I think would have made for more compelling television. But whatever, we got what we got, and it's diverted itself enough to where it actually is interesting now. So that would be another series that was a train wreck to begin with, and I stuck with it to see where it would go, and slowly it became a TV show that I actually have to pay attention to. So well, that's enough of me talking. Yeah,
I watch quite a few different shows, but I'm kind of the opinion I have to keep up with them every week. More so because it's one of those OCD things that I don't like getting behind, and if I get behind, I'll if I get behind a week, that's as much as I'll let myself get behind, because I'll also torrent them if I get behind. Mostly because I don't want to sit there through commercials on the on-demand, and it'll play the same. It's not even that it plays commercials; it's that it plays the same 3 every commercial break.
Mm-hmm.
So it bothers me. that, and usually I'm trying to blitz through shows, and I don't really want to sit through an extra 20 minutes of commercials. So I actually download them all to a flash drive and put them on my Blu-ray player so that I can watch them in mass. But I watch. My wife's got me into the Tomorrow People.
It's decent. It's decent.
It's decent. I can't knock it. I like it. Arrow's still getting darker and better as it goes along. Continuum has upgraded their CG work, and some of the revelations that have gone on in the show are amazing. And the time paradoxes. As well as they got rid of the intro of her stating her mission and everything. It's an actual intro.
Oh, yay.
So I was quite happy about that. I was like, yay, they're not going to explain anything, just get right into the show, which is great. Unlike Arrow and Tomorrow People, where they say their name and then give the gist of the show, which I hope they change next season. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually ramping up pretty good, especially with the latest one. Won't talk about it this week because you haven't seen it yet, but it definitely ties into Captain America 2. Plus, I feel that it'd be unfair to talk about both when some people may not have seen it yet.
See, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a really weird show for me.
It's hit or miss for me.
It's. I want to say, if I had a third category that was somewhere between a train wreck and must-watch television, S.H.I.E.L.D. would be in that category. But I don't have a category like that, so it's definitely in the train wreck category.
Okay.
Just because I don't know how to feel about it.
I want to really like it, but it's one of those shows where I almost feel like it's set up to fail because it's playing off the film so bad.
And that's one of the reasons why I knock it. Like I don't knock the idea of it. Like I love the idea of the show. I like what they want to do with the show. I don't feel like the show is delivering on what they want to do with it. But at the same time, I also kind of have to blast the show for one of the same reason, and I brought this up when I was talking to my friends on Facebook today. I have to blast S.H.I.E.L.D. for the same reason that I blasted Heroes, which is that Heroes had a lot of outside sources. Like there was an ongoing comic book that was going on with Heroes that would introduce characters, and they would show up in the TV show for like one thing, and then they would disappear forever. Like it would just be like a cameo from the comic book jumping onto the screen, which is kind of what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. does, only it's a cameo going from the silver screen down to the small screen. And it directly plays on S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. directly plays on events that take place in the films, and that's fine. But does that make it a good TV show? Like, as a series by itself, is S.H.I.E.L.D. still good from episode to episode if you have not seen those movies? Or does it end up being like one of those things where the transitions are so jarring that you don't know what happened unless you watch the movies?
Well, like I watched last week's episode, and jumping into the beginning of this week's episode, it was kind of off-putting because it was all of a sudden progressed a little bit of time. Like it was. I can't really explain it. It's kind of weird how they transitioned to do it. So I was kind of... It directly takes place during part of the events of Captain America 2.
So it doesn't pick up with last week's episode ended with their jet being like hijacked and turned in a direction and flying off in another direction.
Okay, yeah, it does do that. Maybe I missed the last minute of it then.
Okay.
So that's why I was a little confused.
So it does pick up from there then?
Yes.
Okay.
But I feel the entire episode is difficult to kind of understand unless you've seen Captain America 2.
And see, that's like the thing, and that's what I was saying about the series. Like when I sit down and I watch the TV show, I try to take Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by itself. And when I say like it's okay or it's mediocre, that's because it is mediocre television. It's not but in the grand scheme of things it's great, but it's just not good television.
Well, they actually said last night's episode, because this is recorded on Wednesday, it was the lowest rated episode of the season, which is surprising.
Not really, because I think the ratings have been going down
Yeah, well, the funny
steadily.
thing is I feel like this has been one of the better episodes of the season, only for the fact that if you add the knowledge of Captain America 2 in there,
Yeah.
plus they reference it in a couple points during the episode. They two key incidents that happen during the film they reference that are quite important in the film anyway, and it goes on from there. And then they have one of the classic Marvel twists at the end, which I saw this coming. I'm not going to get into any kind of detail because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But um, there's an event that takes place at the very end that I saw coming 3 episodes back.
Okay. Well, I'm interested to see what that is.
Because there's some character portrayal changes about 2 to 3 episodes back that
Oh, yeah. Okay.
make it obvious of what's going to happen. Um, that's all I'm going to say on the subject. So, but it was interesting to say the least, and it is a game changer. So I really don't know where they're going to go from this, and I don't know if it's going to have any legs to stand on for another season. Being that,
See, that's what I was going to get to. Is oddly enough, there has not been a second season renewal for this show yet,
and they're almost done with the season.
and
They're
I
at
can't.
episode 17.
And I honestly thought that this show. I remember when this show started. We were on here talking about it, and I made the comments that this show will coast by because it's a Disney show on a Disney-owned network being funded by the cash cow that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yet there is no, it has not been renewed for a second season.
I
And
have a theory on it though, but I'll wait till you're done.
you think they're going to change the name?
No, I don't actually. I think it's going to tie into comics, and this is why. Um, I'm just going to insert a quick spoiler alert here for anybody. So fast forward like 2 minutes. Um, I think that Agent, or I think Director Fury is going to create a new shield from the ashes of the old shield based on the events that happened in Captain America 2. That the fact that he goes to New York for kind of a spy mission, which leads me to believe that he's going to try and create a new base of operation and be the head of it, and have like a more close knit group like he does in the comic and animation series. And then still have Hill and Coulson and people like that kind of close, but not be worldwide Shield.
Okay.
The other thing that makes me think that is they've already confirmed Agent Maria Hill and Director Fury to be cameos or actually guest stars for a couple episodes for the remainder of the season.
Right. I don't know.
I think Fury is supposed to be in the last episode of the season, which makes me think that even more. And I think that Agent Hill is supposed to be in the rest of the season, or from like 20 on or something, or 18 on or something like that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I'm kind of, one part of me is like rooting for it, especially if this most recent episode, is good as everyone says it is. But I'm still, even if it's good, here's the thing: I've seen Captain America 2, so if it's good, it's probably going to be good because I know what's going on. Whereas
Yeah,
if I didn't go to the movie, then I wouldn't really know. Like that's part of the treat with these movies, right? You go in and they drop Easter eggs, like hints, nods, all this stuff here and there, and I feel like this episode was so good because it got to reference something. I mean, they referenced Thor 2 in an earlier episode, but that didn't get anywhere near like the buzz. I mean, they were like there
well,
at ground zero cleaning stuff up. So
I think that because that episode didn't really
do anything.
It didn't really do anything, and it didn't really impact based on the fact that the film. I mean, it didn't really pull any pertinent information from the film. Whereas I feel like this episode that came out this week was
So this is a
heavily
bigger deal.
playing on events in Captain America 2. It takes place during I would say the middle of the movie on through to the very end of the movie.
Okay, so this is a bigger deal because it's basically running side by side with the movie versus
It's
being
directly running parallel with the film.
okay. I just I don't know. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I like the idea. I like what they're doing. I when I look at this when I look at the show, I take it as a show, and I it's not good television. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. I'm just saying it's not good television.
No, I agree with you. But and then of course I watch. Are you done with that or
no?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. You're fine. Go ahead.
And then I was going to say that, of course, I watch Supernatural, Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory is just one of those guilty pleasure shows. It's not that it's like superbly greatly written. It's and it's got the canned laughter, which canned laughter always bothers me. But then I also miss it when it's not there. Be
careful, we might get blasted in the comments because isn't that show filmed in front of a live studio audience?
I don't know.
I
don't think so. I don't think it actually says that it's filmed in front of. Usually they do when they are.
Well, I just want to make sure that me personally, I don't care for the laugh track, and I don't care for I don't care anytime I can hear laughter, because I feel like that's telling me when to laugh, and if I'm not laughing myself, you're just not funny enough. So
I enjoy it to some degree just because I miss it being there when it's not there, but then sometimes it's annoying when they play them too close together.
Mm-hmm.
But I also can't stand having dead silence like they're expecting, I can't stand shows that are pretty much everything that's on sitcom wise right now that they don't have any kind of background sound. It's just them talking and then it's dead silence for a while. So it's kind of one of those, I'm kind of on both edges of the sword there. But yeah, and then of course I watch Continuum and I watch Blacklist, which that one I try and usually get 1 to 2 episodes, maybe 3, and then I marathon through those, and then I go back and do it again.
Man, Blacklist is on the. I'll say this for Mike. It was on the chopping block like 2 weeks ago. It has a stay of execution depending on how things go between now and the end of the season. Because the main character still bothers me, but it seems like they may be taking steps to pull her out of that rut. Like, I don't like the characterization of her.
I think they are changing it quite a bit, though.
And that's fine. But then again, again, this is another good interpretation of a train wreck show. Blacklist, outside of Spader's performances, and everyone around, like the female lead and her husband, they were great performances, but that show was being dragged down by the characterization of the female lead and her dumbass husband. And it was like a ball and chain around the neck of that show. And
I agree.
And they've taken major steps in the last 2 or 3 episodes to fix that, but it was definitely a train wreck show on the verge of getting just dropped, and they've changed it. So it's got a stay of execution depending on how things get wrapped up. So
I have high hopes for it anyway, regardless. I have higher hopes for that than I do Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the moment, only because I want to really like the show, but it's like we both said that I don't know how much further they can take it, being on the events that have taken place.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I could see them trying, but I see more potential in Arrow than I do with that at this point. Especially with them bringing in various Batman rogues and various Arrow rogues and...
Arrow seems partners. More willing to draw from...
the comics?
Well, the actual roster of heroes that people know and can recognize, whereas S.H.I.E.L.D. seems like they have to, obviously Deathlock is not a made-up character, but it seems like they have to invent a character or take the long way around to get to 2 characters. You know what I'm saying?
Such as when they have to bring a movie cameo in?
Yeah, or it took them... the lead to Deathlock was really long and unnecessary. I mean, it started with events in the first episode. Isn't that right? Because that guy Deathlock was in episode 1.
Yes, he was in the
So
first episode.
that's just such a long lead to get to what is, a very C-list character, and everybody else outside of like Nick Fury or name dropping someone on the silver screen, everything is like there are no superheroes in that movie, in that show. Like everyone on in that group and in the main group is all made up for that show. And yes, there are some great characters in Fitz and Simmons, but the only superhero that we have, the only comic character you actually have dedicated to that show right now is Deathlock. Like,
Yeah, everybody else is made up.
I mean, and yeah, Fury shows up every once in a while. And they name drop Hill, but they're not in the show. So, I don't know. But that's what I'm saying. Like, Arrow seems more willing to actually name drop either by revealing their real name and letting people figure out who they are, like Solomon Grundy, or by just calling them what they are, Deathstroke. So, and I applaud them for that.
Yeah, they at least are willing to push the envelope.
So.
But I think we've taken that conversation as far as it can go. So do we want to get into some feedback or questions?
Well, let's see. Well, what kind of feedback do we have? Let's see.
We have a few. I mean, you already touched on the TV show roster.
Yeah. Yep.
There's some about the car conversations.
Well, I'm still tinkering with my car, trying to figure out like when we got on the night, I said that I was trying to find the best way to play music in the car. And obviously there's a radio, there's a CD player, there's, XM, there's, it's got, and what I'm focusing on really is the USB port that's in there for getting audio into the car. And you can load up a thumb drive with all your music. You can plug it in there and the car will like index it and stuff like that. The problem I ran into is when you put music on a thumb drive and you stick it in the car and it indexes it, it throws out, while it will label everything by artist and album and stuff like that, as long as the metadata is there, it throws out the CD order.
Yep.
And puts everything out alphabetically. And I did not like that. So what I did is I went and bought a iPod Classic yesterday, because you can actually plug the iPod in it and it will preserve your playlists and the play order of the CDs.
And you can control it from the iPad or iPod.
Well, I can control it from the car. Like, actually, what's really weird is if I plug it in, I lose control of the iPod. I have to control the iPod from the car. That's if I plug it in through the USB port. If I use the auxiliary input jack, then yes, I can control it from the iPod.
Okay.
But I don't really want to do that. I would rather just control it through the car controls and stuff like that. But what I noticed is that, and I'm in the process of doing some testing, the iPod Classic, whenever I turn the car off and I turn it on, it re-indexes all 8,000 songs.
It will do that even on a flash drive.
Well,
because my wife's car, she has the Chevy Sonic, and it has a USB port in the glove box. And I loaded up all of her music on this flash drive and plugged it in, and it'll re-index every time. But not quite to the capacity that a MP3 player would, but it still does.
There's I understand that it might need to re-index, but when my entire drive to and from work, it takes probably 15, 20 minutes to index the iPod.
That's ridiculous.
And what I did is I put about 1,000 songs on my iPhone and went and plugged it in, and it shows up as an iPod on the dashboard, and it indexed almost immediately. Probably by the time this first song was done playing, it had indexed everything on the iPod. Granted, that's 1,000 songs versus 8,000. Mm-hmm. So I brought in my iPod Classic and I I dwindled it down to about 1,000 songs or 1,500 songs, if you will. And I took it back out and I plugged it back into the car, and still slow as anything. Like, I think
No.
it has something to do with it being, and I'm gonna test this when we're done doing the podcast. The iPod Classic is a 160 gigabyte traditional hard drive.
Okay.
So, it's got like the platters in it, so it's kind of slow. And obviously the iPhone is flash-based memory. So I'm wondering if it has to do with the hard drive in the two different in the iPhone and the iPod. So what I did is I loaded up 2,500 songs on my iPad, and I'm going to plug that in and see how responsive it is.
I'm pretty sure because it's flash based that it'll do it almost instantaneously, because my wife's does within a minute. I think she's got 2,000 to 3,000 songs on her flash drive.
Yeah, well, before I went and bought the iPod Classic, I bought a 64 gigabyte thumb drive,
Mm-hmm.
and because they were on sale on Amazon for like $30.
Nice.
And I threw all of my songs on there, and it indexed it like within 2 songs, and then it would say indexing when I turned the car on, but it would never take as long to index that time, like as it does like the first time you put the drive in.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be something to do with it being a traditional like spinning hard drive, and like it's really weird, like playlist information. Like I have like 115 playlists on my computer, and you try to look at that on the car, and you scroll down, and eventually it stops listing playlists, but you can still select it and you can dig into it, and then when you back out, it'll show you like 5 playlists above it and 5 playlists below it. But if you scroll outside of that, all of a sudden the playlist spots where the names would be are empty again. So it's got to be something to do with it just being an iPod Classic. And if that's the case, I'll return the iPod Classic and I'll buy an iPod Touch for my car.
Yeah.
Which sounds excessive, but I love my playlists.
If you got something you like that, I mean, it's kind of hard to go from that to not having any order to how you like things listened to.
I mean, I like the idea of having all my music in my car, even if I don't listen to all of it. And I like the idea of being able to bring all my playlists with me. I mean, that's why you make the playlist, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't have a 6-disc changer in my car like I did before. And yes, the cheapest way would be the $30, 64 gigabyte thumb drive with all my music on it. But like I said, I like to listen to CDs in the order that they were recorded and not alphabetically.
Yeah, they do kind of sound strange if you do it.
So that's what I'm trying to get back to. And that's my update on my car.
My car doesn't do any of that magic. I have to burn a MP3 CD.
I don't even know if my car will play MP3 CDs.
Most of them will. Most
Okay.
of them have MP3 CD capabilities built into them now.
Okay.
Some of them were hit or miss until about 2012, and then they started kind of mass putting them in cars. Basically, as they've made the newer body styles of anything, they've pretty much got that capability. My
Okay.
wife's car does it too, and she also has auxiliary, plus she has USB, so it's kind of a...
Okay.
She has many options, and I don't.
I was gonna say, I mean, the car has like every input under the sun. It's just I've never had an MP. It doesn't, like, nowhere in it does it say like MP3 CD. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like it doesn't say it, so I'm kind of like, does it do it? Because it tells me it does everything else. But then again, if I can get this working the right way, then I have no reason to burn CDs. So
Yeah. Well, plus you can only fit so much on a CD.
Mm-hmm.
Which I unfortunately have to. I've been meaning to burn a new one, so I pretty much put video game music and TV show themes and stuff like that on my CDs. Mostly because I enjoy it more than I do listening to regular CDs. Once in a while, I'll put a regular one in, but most of the time, that's what I listen to.
Right.
Plus, it helps when I drive because certain songs themes make me drive certain ways.
You just rage out.
Yeah, well, like especially listening to things like Sonic the Hedgehog or something like that, and then it's like hit the gas.
Careful, because if you know you run into something, gold rings aren't going to come shooting out of your car.
No, I know. Exhaust and explosions will. Um, but so I think moving to something slightly car related. Caleb Browning says he tended to drive really fast when he first started driving, and after a few tickets and nearly losing his license, he finally slowed down. Now looking back, he realizes how dumb it was. And then he says, I'm sure my control of the car was a lot more limited than I was willing to admit. Yeah, I've gotten in numerous issues with that. I had 6 tickets at one, like, within a couple years span, like 2 years span.
Wow.
Yeah. Funny thing is, 4 of them were for speeding. One was an improper turn, and one of them was because I totaled out my stepmom's car.
I've gotten improper turns twice. I've gotten pulled over for improper turns twice. Well, mostly for not using my blinker. I've been pulled over for not using my blinker twice, but I didn't get a ticket either time. One because it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was in a left-hand turn lane, and I just, I stopped like I was supposed. It was at you know where this is. It was at Perry and Saginaw Road.
Oh, okay.
And I was in the left-hand turn lane getting ready to turn onto Perry from Saginaw, and it was like flashing red because it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. So I stopped at the light like I was supposed to, and I just went. And there was a cop waiting in. He was either in the gas station right there on the corner, or he was down by like the donut shop. Haha, funny.
Yeah.
But he pulled me over, and he's like, "Why weren't you using your blinker?" And I was like, "Because it's 2 o'clock in the morning and there's no one on the road." And
Nice.
he went and ran everything and came back and he didn't give me a ticket. He's like, well, just blah 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 blah, this, that, and the other thing. And another time it was on Perry Road, and I was turning into Bella Vista, and
Okay.
it was late at night, not a lot of cars. I don't use my blinker unless there is a car behind me. If there is a car behind me, I will use my blinker to tell them what I'm doing. But if I know that I am like the appropriate car length away from somebody and I need to like merge into traffic or whatnot, and I know that I'm not going to cause them to slow down, I won't. I just, out of habit, I just don't use my blinker. I don't know why. It's just always been that way. Anyways, long story short, I turned into Bella Vista. I made a right-hand turn into Bella Vista, which off of Perry Road, and in this part of Perry Road, it's like 4 lanes wide. And so I turned into Bella Vista, and almost immediately as I pulled into the subdivision, the lights popped on behind me. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I stopped, and he pulled me over, and he's like, hey, why? Again, he's like, why didn't you use your blinker? And this wasn't the same night or anything like that. This was like months apart. He's like, why didn't you use your blinker? And I said, because you weren't right behind me. And I got off on that one too.
That's surprising.
I have found that they like it when you can either make them laugh or they can easily tell that you were telling the truth. Like, just being straight up with them about what I was doing, like both times, it's probably what got me out of the whole situation. There have been I've had some other really great run-ins with the cops too, but maybe we can save those for another time.
Yeah, I'm not getting into my 6, but I've been pulled over, I think, 5 other times that I did not get a ticket. Yes, that's a record 11 times. One of them, they didn't have to pull me over because I had a car that was on the side of the road. So, can you step out of the vehicle? I'm already out of the vehicle. But one of them was because I had this 89 S15 truck, and I was driving from Fenton area back with my girlfriend, now wife, and I had the oldest vehicle on the road, and a state trooper pulled us over. And his reasoning was, and he was standing looking through my wife's window, and she's sitting here like trying not to laugh, and I'm sitting here going, shut up, I've had 3 tickets already, I don't need another one. And he says, do you know why I pulled you over? And I'm like, no, not really. And he says, well, it's that air freshener there hanging from your window. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking shitting me. he pulled me over for an air freshener. He's like, "That's obstructing your view," and I says, "I can see around it." And then he's sitting here and he's just like leaning in the window, and Mary's sitting here laughing at this point. And the guy ended up letting us off, but I said, "What the hell were you laughing about?" She's like, "His breath stunk, something terrible, and he's sitting here breathing on me." And I've been pulled over twice on Perry Road, which is hilarious. When I lived out in Grand Blanc, and I was heading home from Little Caesars back when I did that a couple years ago. It's like 12 o'clock, 12:30 at night, maybe close to 1. So I'm driving home. One of the times I realized I was getting too close to a car in front of me. So, of course, naturally, I slowed down. Well, a cop pulled me over after that because he says, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I says, "I was going a little over the speed limit." And he's like, "Yeah, you're getting too close to that car." And I said, "Well, I noticed I was getting too close, so I started slowing myself down." And then he ended up letting me off. And the other one was another cop that was literally a block from where I lived. And I looked, it's a 4-way blinking red light. No one's out here. I slowed down, I stopped, and I did like a rolling stop around the corner. And then so he pulls me over for that, and he's like, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I says, "Not really." "Where do you live?" "Right there." And he's like, "How long you live there?" I'm like, "Over a year." And so he ended up sitting there, and he's like, "You could have hit somebody, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "There's nobody out at 12:30 at night." I'm like, and I'm pretty sure I would have seen him because of the lights. And he just ended up BSing with me for 10 minutes. "So how you like it in there? Blah blah blah." Like, and I'm like, "Dude, I just want to go to bed."
Oh man, one summer I was on my way home, and I lived in Bella Vista, and Perry Road was under construction, and people were cutting through Bella Vista and Kirkridge to get around the construction.
Okay.
And I lived off of one of the main streets going through Bella Vista. So Bella Vista is a bunch of 4-way stops in there, and living in there, I never stop at the 4-way stops. I treat them like they're yields. I do rolling stops. Never been in an accident, never caused an accident, never nothing. And one night, I was coming home, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with that subdivision or not, but it was like Francesca and Bautel. I did a rolling stop through that intersection, and I remember looking left and right, and when I looked down the left, there was a car that was kind of sitting off to the side of the road that normally isn't there, like at that time of night.
Yeah.
And so I did my stupid rolling stop, and because the lights on the car weren't on and it wasn't moving or anything, so I did my rolling stop and I kept going. And it was one more street until I was home. And sure enough, the lights came on behind me, and I ended up like my car was like half in my driveway and half out of my driveway. And the cop did the whole thing. "I pulled you over, blah 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 blah." And I said, "I'm home for the evening. Does this really need to be a thing?" And unfortunately, he did give me a ticket for that. And he was only sitting there because people were cutting through the subdivision because of the construction. So it was like a good way to catch people, doing the rolling stops.
That's crap.
And well, long story short, the next summer, my friends and I were hanging out in front of Pet Supplies Plus, right there in downtown Grand Blanc. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. We're just hanging out, eating Taco Bell, and a cop car drove down Saginaw Street, and I waved at him, and all my friends were like, "What are you doing? You're going to make him come in here, and he's going to like make us leave and everything." And I waved, and the cop did pull into the parking lot, and he BS'd with us for like the next hour and a half, just like hanging out in the parking lot. And one of the things we ended up having him do was we had him run our licenses just to see what would pop up. And granted, none of us had any warrants out for our arrests, so we weren't really worried about him hauling us in, and he's not going to take us in for anything that had happened, And it was really funny because he ran my license, and he saw that rolling stop in Bella Vista. He goes, were you in a red convertible?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I think I'm the one that pulled you over." And I was like, seriously, why did you give me that ticket? I was home. I was off the road. Everything was fine. And he goes, do you stop at the stop signs? And I said, no. And he goes, then it doesn't matter. So
Wow.
I don't know, I have fun. I have fun with cops. I've never honestly had a bad experience with a police officer, mainly because anytime I've been pulled over, whether I've gotten a ticket or not, anytime I've been pulled over, I know why I've been pulled over. Like it's like I know I was either like driving too fast or I did a rolling stop or I didn't use my blinker. Like I've always known what it was that I got pulled over for. So it wasn't like I never felt like I was being targeted or harassed.
Yeah, I've always been pulled over for legitimate reasons.
They're just dumb.
I actually,
They're just dumb.
yeah, yeah.
But nothing that makes me go, I hate the police.
No, I mean, I can't fault them. They're doing their job. So, I mean, whatever. I got pulled over twice at work, which prompted a event for me happening at work. Once I was driving to the Flint Auto Auction to dump off a car. Got pulled over on my way back from the auto auction. And this cop followed me about 2-3 miles, just rode behind me, waited till I got off the expressway, and I got extremely close to the dealership. I'm literally a block away, and he pulls me over. Do you know why I pulled you over? No, not really. And I kind of knew, but I didn't really want to voice it because I would have gotten a ticket, and the dealership doesn't pay for tickets. It was because I didn't have a license plate, but they never assigned me one. So I knew damn well that if they gave me a ticket, the dealership would not cover it, despite them not handing me my own plate.
Mm-hmm.
So I played bullshit with him, which I learned from a mechanic that used to work there years ago. And he says, "You didn't have a license plate on the back." And I says, "I don't." I says, I slapped one of those magnetic ones on the back. And he says, "It's not there." And I says, "Son of a bitch." And then I made it like into a big production. And he says, "Where are you headed?" And I says, "The dealership right there." And then he's like, "Make sure you get a plate or get somebody to go out and find it." And I said, "Okay." And then I pulled into the dealership, let him know. And then about 8 months ago, I got pulled over at the dealership again. It was a rainy day, and we were dropping a vehicle off at this speedometer place that converts it from Canadian to American. And I was coming back from there, and I knew when I turned this corner that this cop was going to nail me, because we're bringing this raggedy Malibu back from there, and he gets me, and I'm nowhere near the dealership at this point, and he gets out. He's in his raincoat, getting downpoured on, and I'm sitting there in this nice car, like it's a dirty car, but it's not.
You're not outside.
Wet. No. And he sits there, and I give him the stuff, from the dealership and everything. And he's like, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And I said, "No plate." And he's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, my boss was supposed to be following behind me because they didn't give me a plate."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "But it turns out I lost him because he turned a different direction." And I said, "If you'd like, I can dial up him on my phone right now, and you can talk to him." No, that's all right, blah, 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 and here's your stuff. Just get there as soon as you can. Make sure you come out with a plate next time. So I told them, I said, "I'm not driving any more damn cars until I get a plate." So they gave me my own plate, so.
Good deal.
But, yeah, so I think I beat that with a dead horse.
I'm gonna save some of mine so that when we get listener feedback, we have something to talk about.
Oh, don't worry. I'm sure I have something else I've forgotten to mention, but... So we have 2 questions, one from Facebook, one from Twitter, that I put a call out for earlier today.
And we're not trying to step on MWire's feet here.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
So
do you have any particular one pulled up?
I have both.
Okay.
I
guess you can bring up whichever one piques your interest more.
Well, I think I think Ryan Cox's question will be a little easier to answer. I think uh, he says, with Captain America 3 being on the same date as the Batman Superman movie, will DC move it again? Interesting enough, I just read an article regarding this. I think it was yesterday. It was on Slash Film about, obviously two big movies having that same date in May. Um, no, one of them will move. Obviously, Captain America 3, especially after the reception that Captain America 2 has gotten, is a major contender to hold off Batman versus Superman at the box office. But the bottom line is neither studio wants to run the risk of like not getting ticket sales to the other one, and they're both going to be huge movies. As far as I know, the stuff that was shot for Batman versus Superman, the early stuff that was shot, has been scrapped. So basically, they're starting from zero. Cap 3 doesn't even really have a script; it just has an outline. There are so many things that are going to happen between now and May of 2016 that, one of them will end up being delayed. Which one do I think will move? I think it's going to be Warner Brothers. I think that the Marvel juggernaut, it cannot. I mean, granted, Batman Superman is going to have the look-in audience because they're going to want to see Ben Affleck as Batman. Say what you want about Ben Affleck as Batman, people are going to want to see how good or bad he does. But the Marvel movies are juggernauts, and Cap 3 is going to be huge that year. So it's going to be Batman versus Superman that gets moved. Because Marvel seems to have a handle on things that once they get the ball rolling, like production-wise, they're actually able to hit their dates, whereas the Batman Superman movie is just a mess.
Well, it's not only a mess because they keep adding stuff to it, but they also keep moving it, and now they've decided that because they're doing a Wonder Woman movie now and fast-tracking it for 2015, so that they can give her a proper introduction before she hits Batman Superman.
See, I can't. I won't ban the Wonder Woman movie. Oh, this is the first I've heard of it for 2015. I won't ban that one for the simple fact the same thing happened with Captain America and Thor. They were both fast-tracked movies, and it was painfully obvious that they were fast-tracked. They were both fast-tracked so they could hit before Avengers. So, I mean, and Warner Brothers tends to put a little better production value on their stuff than Marvel does.
Yeah, they do, but it's also like you said, they drop the ball when it comes to just getting it out.
Right.
Marvel sets that date and it's concrete for the most part. They're that's what it is, and they're going to get it out.
For better or worse, that's what it is.
Yeah, for better or worse. Whereas DC or Warner Brothers tends to, if they need to, they'll postpone it. Which again is either direction.
So what do you think? You think it's going to be Cap 3, or you think it's going to be Batman Superman that flinches?
I think Batman Superman will get pushed towards closer to the end of the year, maybe an August release or late July release.
Oh wow!
I don't think it's going to come out as soon as they think it will.
Okay.
So then there's the other question. Brad Mull from the fan page says, after seeing the TMNT teaser, I was slightly hopeful for the movie. However, now knowing that Johnny Knoxville has been cast as Leo's voice, expectations have dropped back to zero. I guess my question is, what movies were you super excited about until you heard a casting headline and no Batman vs. Superman is not included?
Okay, now, I have a question for you on this one, Steve.
Okay.
Regarding the first half of his question regarding Johnny Knoxville being cast as the voice of Leo. Being a guy that, is big on the voice acting stuff. When you think about this, if you take Johnny Knoxville, obviously Johnny Knoxville is known for Jackass and for being a jackass.
Exactly.
But at the same time, he's lending a voice. Like, what do you? I mean, if you look at it that way, if it's him lending a voice, I mean, there are lots of voice actors who don't look like the role that they're playing, or that probably don't
No.
act like the role that they're playing. It seems. I think it's weird because it's a. I think it's weird that people. I think people are lashing out because it's a name. It's a known name for a guy who makes a living out of being a moron, playing the leader of the Turtles.
Well, I'm going to play a little bit devil's advocate and my own personal opinion. My personal opinion, I'd like to see them port over the voice actors from the TMNT 2012 cartoon,
Okay.
because I think that they could do just as fine a job in the live action world as they can in the animated. Um, Pretty much also because they all tend to sound very similar anyhow. Um, the other side of the coin is, look at how much backlash there's been about Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, or Ben Affleck as Batman, or um, stuff like that. I mean, you have Jason Biggs, and as you know, the guy that was in American Pie movies, playing Leonardo on the animated
Yeah.
version. So
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of can see the direction they're going in with Johnny Knoxville playing Leo, because they're taking the polar opposite, the guy that you'd think would be the prankster role, and putting him in the leadership one. Plus, I think his voice would lend well to Leo, because
Granted,
he's not going to. They're going to rein him back anyway. He's going to be acting the character of Leo, not being an ass.
yeah, well, we haven't even heard his voice as Leo. Like, will it even be Knoxville, or will it be like just him doing a voice for Leo? That's what I'm interested in.
I think it'll be him being a voice for Leo. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure he'll throw a quick quip in here, or there, because writers tend to do that for the actors' purposes. But I think that he'll be pretty much straight arrowed with it, and I think I think he'll do fine. I mean, it's his voice range. I could see him playing Leo more than any of the other turtles.
One of the What scares me about this, and it's not his voice, and it's not the look of the turtles. We've talked about this. I'm very interested in seeing this movie. What worries me about this news is that I thought that the actors that were playing them in the motion capture suits would be the ones supplying the voice work. And obviously that is not the case. So I'm kind of wondering how long, like if this is just getting out that Knoxville is doing the voice of Leo, I'm almost more worried that they're going to be dubbing lines like they're going to be dubbing the lines over the lip movements rather than like recording the actor saying the line and then doing, you know what I'm saying?
It could be the reverse though, because how typically normal CG animation is usually they get the voice first, and then they do the lip movements to the voice.
But that's what I'm saying. If we're hearing about this so late in the game,
I think they're leaking it this late on purpose, knowing the backlash that's going to be in it,
okay.
because it's going to drive publicity towards it. Because I mean, it's still coming out, what, July?
I thought it was August.
Maybe it's August. I forget. Sometimes they're all starting to run together now. That
I just feel
all
like
the
that's not
movie
enough
season.
time. I mean, I could be really wrong, and I just feel like that's not enough time to motion capture that. You know, get it right.
I think that I want to say that this is probably just leaked on purpose at this point. I think that it's been probably done, because usually when they have people doing the voiceover for stuff, they usually get them pretty early on, like when they first start building the CG models.
When did this news come out? Because for some reason I feel like this is a really elaborate April Fool's joke.
You know what? I don't know.
I know it was last week. I know it wasn't this week. I know it was sometime last week because they talked about it on MWire Weekly. I'm really
wondering if that's total bullshit.
Because they've got Tony Shalhoub as
and there was
Splinter?
rumors today about some other guy playing the voice of Splinter, and there was a conflict of interest.
I thought it was Tony Shalhoub was playing Splinter.
Well, he is, according to the article, but there's also now a article that came out today, I guess, about some guy that was supposed to be originally playing the voice of Splinter, and then Shaloub was the one that got it after that.
I'm wondering if this couldn't be some elaborate April Fool's joke. Someone should chase that down and find out when this news hit the internets, because that doesn't seem right. This seems like one of those things where you end up with like Justin Bieber holding a script for Batman and Superman, teasing that he's going to be Robin.
Yeah, because they said Seinfeld actor was replaced as voice of Master Splinter. That came out a day ago.
See, I'm okay with Johnny Knoxville supplying the voice for Leo. Again, these are just voices. It's not like you're going to see them. I'm just kind of bummed.
It's looking like it came out. It looks like it came out the 3rd.
Oh, dang.
So it's probably legitimate.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, I mean, I don't want to say that's a bummer. Like I said, it's just a voice, and we'll see what happens, because people can do, like, you've even got Sean Astin as the voice of Raph, and he was like Rudy and the guy from Hobbit. I can't remember his name in the Hobbit.
Samwise.
Yeah, Samwise. There's no way Sam Wise could be Raphael.
Yeah,
yet,
I mean,
he does a pretty good job.
And I think people forget, and myself included, that they're actors.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to manipulate where you think that they probably can't.
Let's not forget Sorry.
I was going to say, more often than not, they prove us wrong.
Yeah, Heath Ledger says hi.
Yeah, from beyond the grave.
I mean, that's like the gold standard, right? That's the one where everyone's like, what? That's like kind of like, and then he just like slapped everyone in the face. But I'm not saying Johnny Knoxville's going to pull the same thing, but it's like, just wait. So, especially since the only one we've heard talk in the trailer was Mikey.
Yeah, and they have no confirmation on who's playing that character yet.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the voice they used was the voice of the guy, like
in the suit.
Yeah. So if anything, I feel bad for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they. Yeah, I mean, as much as my fanboyisms come out, I hope that nobody gets screwed on the whole thing.
So the second part of the question then.
Okay, the second part of the question is, what movies were you super excited about until you heard a casting headline and no Batman vs Superman?
Super excited until I heard about a headline. I don't know when it happened. I started paying more attention to who's writing and directing a movie rather than who's starring in it. And I know that there was a movie that made me just go, yeah, that's it. Because that's the way that I need to look at it, because certain directors can coax different things out of actors. And one of the examples I like to make is with Hayden Christensen, who, anyone that doesn't know, he was Anakin Skywalker. Yeah, well, he was Anakin Skywalker in episodes 1, 2, and 3. And if you subscribe to that thing, he was also in episode 6. He was awful in those movies. And I really enjoyed him in Jumper.
Oh, I agree.
And that was one of those things where it's like, it's not the guy, it's the director. Like, I feel like a good director or like a good writer or like the combo of the two can get the performance. They can get the right performance. And so I don't really pay attention to, it's not so much the casting stuff, which is why, like, I never really worry about a Christopher Nolan movie. Christopher Nolan's next movie, Interstellar, has Matthew McConaughey in it. I don't have a problem with Matthew McConaughey. Never have. I tend to enjoy his movies for what they are, which is like romantic action comedy movies. But I have more faith in like Christopher Nolan to be able to coax a performance out of him than anything. And then, of course, he was just in True Detective, which is just amazing. So I'm not really worried about that movie at all. While I ponder on this, are there any that you can think of?
I'm having a hard time trying to think of any, honestly.
I think I can think of more trailers that I can think of trailers that were better than the movie. Like, a trailer got me excited, and then the movie like was a complete letdown, like X-Men 3. The same argument could also be made for The Matrix 2 and 2.5, because I don't really. I consider Reloaded and Revolutions to be one movie, because they technically are. Uh, but I feel like the trailers for those movies were kind of a letdown, compared to what relatively compared to what we got. I know X-Men 3. X-Men 3 was was really the movie that taught me to be skeptical of a good trailer. Uh, because that movie was just garbage. Um, yeah, I really can't think of anything. Yeah, I mean, I want if the readers could or the list readers, if the listeners could throw in some examples, we might be able to riff on. Because, like I said,
Yeah,
nothing's jumping to my mind.
yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank as well. I mean, I can't, I can't even really think of anything off the top of my head what I would say I disliked enough to, um,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know.
I will say this about trailers, though. On a side note, I don't want to see another trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of already shown all they can with that at
But
this
the
point.
but the thing about it is that trailer is so perfect. I feel like that trailer. I can watch that trailer on repeat. That trailer is really good, and I feel like it does a great job of capturing like what that movie, like the tone of that movie. I feel like it does a great job capturing the tone of that movie. And I think the minute they release a second trailer, it that is when that movie is going to start to look bad. I really think they just nailed it out of the park with that first trailer, and all marketing for that movie is downhill. Like, and I'm actually going to avoid all other trailers just so I don't risk anything ruining it for me. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I saw it again. I saw it twice because I saw Captain America 2 twice. So I saw the trailer twice in 3 days on the big screen. I was both times I was like, that is such a perfect trailer. And yeah. So let's put that question out there. I know it's a movie thing, um, but it's not news or anything. We're just riffing on opinions here. Are there like trailers that were like set up, like I said, like X-Men 3, and then the movie was like crap? Are there trailers that were like really good? It made you want to see that movie and the movie was just garbage? Um, Let us know about that and throw out your suggestions for casting that ruined a movie for you. It's like, man, I can't think of anything.
I have a hard time figuring any of those out anymore, just because some of them it's just so hard to find somebody that's miscast. It's more so like you said, the writers and the directors that kind of either pull me or throw me. Because I mean, most of the time, the director means diddly squat to me because I either know their stuff or I don't. Um, Usually for me, it's the writers, like if I've heard of them before or something like that.
Hmm.
Sometimes the actors or the direction, like for instance, Fantastic Four. I'm not happy with like anything I've read about it, but I'm not a huge Fantastic Four fan anyway. So to me, any kind of change uh, doesn't inspire confidence.
See, I like Josh Trank, and I really like what he did on Chronicle. So,
I hated Chronicle.
I loved Chronicle. I really did. I'm kind of bummed that the sequel is kind of like in hell right now, but
Isn't that
I,
the one that they had the powers and they did um the where they walked around with the camera?
yeah, yep.
Yeah, I can't stand motion capture when they're walking around
Oh, that's. I mean,
during the
that's.
film.
But that. I think that's. I think that was a good movie, regardless of the way of the style it was shot. I mean, I can understand not liking it because of the way that it was shot. I totally get that.
That's
It's
that's
just
what
personal
threw it for
preference.
me. I think I could have watched it if it had been shot like a normal film.
Right, right. And I really, but like I don't have a problem with those movies. I mean, I liked it. I like the performances and I like the evolution of a supervillain, which is really what that movie was. Um, but yeah, I'm all for what Josh is going to do with the Fantastic Four, especially since it seems like they're going with Ultimate Fantastic Four, which is personally my favorite Fantastic Four. But we could talk about that more in the coming months after we actually see something. But I don't know. Yeah, it is all about it. It's really about the director for me. I mean, for instance, the Netflix project with Marvel. They've announced that this was announced a while ago, but Drew Goddard, who did Cabin in the Woods, he is the showrunner and one of the writers on the Daredevil series.
Mm-hmm.
You threw his name in there, I'm sold. I don't care who they cast as Daredevil. They could put Ben Affleck back in the suit, and I'd still watch it. I mean, that's because I like that guy. So I'm not saying it would be good, but I definitely like tune in to find out what it was about. But I would never. They could completely revamp Daredevil and make him a her, and I'd still watch it because I'd want to be like, well, why did they decide to make this decision? So, but yeah, help us out here, guys, with this guy's question.
Yes, definitely help us.
What movies were you super excited about until you heard a casting headline? Man, that's a tough one. I'll have to ponder on that one.
Yeah.
So. All right, you want to take us out?
Sure. Just before we do, and no, I'm not getting into the random Batman, Superman crap that's floating around right now, because there's quite a bit of it as far as casting and stuff like that. I'm more concerned with the video game at this point, at least till they show me a bat suit. We'll be having the information for the Geekcast Radio Year 5 contest on the website shortly after this episode has been posted and people have listened to it. So there will be that with some information about how to get qualified for it. So look for that on the website. I'm sure I'll have some kind of a banner somewhere. So, yeah. Anyways, thank you for listening to Altered Geek Unlimited. You can get a hold of us on the following methods. You can call the voicemail line 502-526-5821. Leave your name and the show you're leaving it for. Email us feedback@geekcastradio.com. You can visit the episode post on the website. You can find us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can get a hold of us on Twitter at Geekcast Radio, #AlteredGeek. My Twitter handle is at SCP21, and yours is, sir?
Mine is at BoothNinja81.
So, as always, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks.
Bye.
See you next time.
Sorry. Bye.
Ah, brave new world that has such putzes in it. You know, kids, a lot has changed while your old Uncle Joker's been away. New Gotham, new rules, even a new Batman.
It isn't 65 years in the future, but Legends of the Dark Knight has gone beyond. Batman Beyond, that is.
Ah, the new boy. Ears are too long and I miss the cape, but not too shabby. Not too shabby at all.
Join Steve and Mike as they delve into the remaining episodes of the podcast, where they'll cover Batman Beyond, products, games, and more. Check it out only on GeekCastRadio.com.